and call the meeting to order. I wanted to thank all the board members for coming to the retreat. It's a great turnout, and especially coming in on a weekend. Happy New Year to those of you who are observing the New Year this year. But I also want to thank the family members of the board members and the staff who sacrificed a part of their weekend to let us be able to be here and have our board retreat. As you can see, we're going to have it's a retreat, so it's something that is not a formal board meeting, although it is complying with all the public notice arrangements for a board meeting. But I want this to be more of a conversation and an opportunity for board members to feel the ability to participate in a more informal, less structured way, and to get the information that we're going to need as we look ahead to many important issues that we'll be tackling ahead. So I want to first off ask Karen to call the roll so we can begin with that.
Arnaldo Avalos.
Present.
Jeffrey Baum.
Here.
Joseph Belinsky.
Here.
Scott Budnick. Jeff Burdick. Here. Connie Conway.
She is here.
Thomas Epstein.
Here.
Cecilia Estelano.
Here.
Danny Hawkins.
Here.
Raveen Kaur. Here. Emma Ballingham. Here. Jennifer Perry. Here. Gary Reed.
Here.
Valerie Shaw.
Here.
Nancy Sumner.
Here.
Full house.
Great, thank you. This is terrific. So as I said before, this is intended to be an opportunity for us to begin a conversation about some of the issues that the system's been tackling over the last year, and delve more deeply into two very important areas that have come before us. And then, as you'll see at the agenda, Cecilia and I had met with Bryce. As you know, we're going to be starting the strategic planning process for the system. And this is the opportunity for the board to have the most opportunity to impact the future direction of how this system serves the state of California. And we wanted to start beginning that conversation, those dialogues, and give board members a chance. And I'm hoping to hear from every voice around the table about what are those passion areas that you care about. That I was talking to Cecilia on the plane on the way up. We have an amazingly diverse and talented board that we represent all parts of the state. We represent a variety of industries. We come from different parts of the system, whether we're in the system or outside the system, and professions. And everybody who's been on this board now, too, has their own experiences that can bring in those relationships. And you're hearing from your where you are, what are the needs of our students, what are the needs of our communities, what are the needs of our employers, what are the needs of our society. We want to make sure those voices and those experiences are integrated into the strategic plan for the system. And for those of you who were part of it the last time, I think Debbie and Gary were there, and others might have participated informally. That strategic plan really provided the roadmap for many of the successes that you've been able to witness today, and that we've come very far, but there's still a lot of places where we even have more opportunity to impact and better serve our state and our students. So we're going to begin that conversation at the end of today, and that will be an ongoing conversation that will continue throughout the coming year. But first up, we're going to look at the recommendations of a year-long process that this board started to tackle workforce education and the importance of it to our state and our economy, and also our students and our workforce and our employers. So I want to turn it over to the chancellor, who will introduce the topic and provide some background. We'll have some presentations, but again, this is a less formal setup. I do want to hear the presentations and want to thank those who have participated and led this process. But this is a time for the board will have that opportunity to really try to understand all the work that's gone into it and fully appreciate the recommendations that are coming to us.
Thank you, President Baum, members of the board. It truly is a pleasure to bring this report to you today and entertain your comments and questions. I would remind the board that you chartered this group back in November of last year, and so it has been a fast and furious activity. I think it's interesting to note that some of our colleagues in higher ed thought this was moving a little too fast, and some of our colleagues in business and industry thought it wasn't moving fast enough, and so we may have found the sweet spot. It really is a pleasure to honor our chair and one of our co-chairs who are with us today, Dr. Sunita Cook, who is the President Superintendent of Maricopa College, and Lynn Shaw, the President of the Long Beach City College full-time faculty, and also a CTE faculty member, have worked tirelessly over the past many months, and Tim Rainey, the Executive Director of the California Workforce Investment Board, was unable to be with us today, but he was the other co-chair in the activity. As you can imagine, this really required tremendous staffing, and Vice Chancellor Tan Quinn-Liven really has backed up our task force over the past many months, and she and her colleagues in the Workforce Economic Development Unit have really done a wonderful amount of work. So it's a pleasure to be with you. These folks are going to give you a quick overview and then be very interested in what you have to say. With that, Sunny, I'll turn it over to you. Okay.
Thank you very much, President Harris. Thank you, President Baum, Vice President Estolano, and members of the board. We're delighted to be here today to overview what we know that you've done a lot of your homework, but to overview the 25 recommendations of the Strong Workforce Task Force, as we fondly nickname it. I also want to acknowledge Julie Bruno in the audience. She also served as a member designee of the Academic Senate onto the task force, and I wanted to acknowledge also all the vice chancellors who have been present with us across all of these conversations. So we know you've done a lot of the reading, so I'm just going to quickly summarize.
And we all, do we have these here too? Are these the same
Yes.
slides too? So we can go ahead and keep the lights up in the room. That'd be better.
So as the Chancellor mentioned, it was a year ago that at the retreat, we began to talk about these startling statistics, such as 65% of the job openings in California in the future will require some level of post-secondary credential. Some level is the new gateway into the workforce. I mean, for some industries, what it means is that if you don't have the credential, you can't get their interview. If you can't get their interview, you can't get the jobs. So when we think about access and success, this is a very profound set of statistics. And then we talked about the other very important statistic, which is this gap in California, the gap of 1 million more industry-valued middle-skill credential. And remember, this is about sub-baccalaureate credentials, which is you need more than a high school degree, but less than a bachelor's degree. So we're talking about certificates, AAs, and industry-recognized credentials. And the important role that community colleges, as our institutions, play as the system of post-secondary education best situated to deliver on this 1 million more gap. And the community colleges play a vital role to jobs and the economy because we can do this. And if it's not us stepping up to fill this gap, then what other system would, right? That was the dilemma for all of us. And my congratulations to all of you as Board of Governors. It is through your leadership that you really reposition the conversation here in California. Because you commissioned this task force, you brought awareness to the issues of workforce and the importance of getting these pathways correct because it impacts poverty and who can access these jobs and these careers. Member Malumet and Member Hawkins, they will tell you that this was not always the conversation before. And Members Baum and Estolano, Belansky, and Member Avalos and Member Shaw, when you attended the town hall, you saw the tremendous interest, not only by our own system, but the external parties weighing in these town halls and seeing the connection between workforce and career technical education as a pathway out of poverty. As such, because of the attention that you have placed through this task force, you really reshaped the conversation, even on the road to the next gubernatorial election. On Monday, member Antonio Villagrosa is having his own version of the town hall and incorporating the discussions about workforce and poverty. Last week, Tom Steyer invited the community colleges to be present in a discussion about social inequality and what are the strategies and policies that could close the gap on economic mobility. Steve Wesley has also been interested in the work that we're doing, and hopefully many others. And so they want to know what policies can fuel our regional economies, but in ways that include our communities, so that we don't leave anybody behind in California. Member Epstein, you were there at the Bay Area Council economic discussion, and this was a discussion. How do we tie and make sure that as the economy evolves, the members of our communities can come along? Member Avalos and Member Budnick, we wrestled in terms of the digital media, the coding and programming, where there's tremendous growth, but how is it you can bring diversity into these talent pipelines? And then, of course, regions and the economies differ, right, in terms of skill sets. So if you're a Member Conway or Member Reed or Member Burdick in the Central Valley, agriculture, water, environmental technologies are really important. Advanced manufacturing is really important. Health is really important. Now, in health, 14 out of the 15 regional economies care about health care. So, Member Sumner and Member Kaur, especially when you were doing outreach to the Student Senate on this, they're very interested in understanding what are the pathways so that our communities can engage in the economy and the job creation of the future. And that's why we have come to you today now with these 25 recommendations. And I'll turn it over to Lynn to overview the process.
This was a highly inclusive process. We had 14 regional conversations, and 3 of them were primarily faculty. They were all faculty, but there were a few other people there. We had people do their homework on the task force. We had 6 papers, which I think all of you have read and seen, to sort of create the background and the framework to deal with these complicated and important issues. We had public comment. We had 221 public comments, and then we had 10 letters, and those were also incorporated and considered by the task force. It's such urgent and important work because I believe we can really have a chance right now to impact the economy by paying attention to these less than a bachelor's degree certificates and degrees. So these are just some pictures of some of the meetings. This is how it looked. We had lots of inside people that were challenged to come together inside the system to figure out what we can do about this million middle skill gap. How are we going to meet the needs of the students of California, of the citizens of California? And there was commonality across the state, but there are also these regional considerations, rural communities versus urban, et cetera. But it was really interesting to see how it sort of coalesced in these 25 recommendations. So the faculty conversations were particularly interesting. I went to the Clovis one, and of course that's rural, and I'm from LA, so it was urban, so it was quite eye-opening. But yet, in the end, it seemed like there was a coming together of minds about how we can better meet the needs of our CTE students. So all these have been validated in multiple ways, and we're very excited and proud of the recommendations.
So Lynn talked about the regional conversations that were really internal conversations within our system, and I'm going to show you a few pictures, starting with Central Valley, of the conversations that occurred with our employers at the table. So now this was our external partners being asked after the internal audience had had a voice. Our external partners, our business, our industry, our economic development folks, our public, civic, elected officials, and this is one that occurred in Central Valley. Over 130 people attended, and there were a huge number of employers. And like Lynn said, we saw a lot of the same kind of themes regardless of where we were. That there were jobs open, that employers were having difficulty finding qualified, skilled workforce, and that they wanted us to engage employers as a region, not as individual colleges within regions and individual high schools within regions. You'll see the next photo is in Sacramento, where I think very much, I don't have a picture of Coachella Valley, which is I think where you were, Member Baum, and we don't have a picture of San Diego, which is where I was, but the conversations were very similar with great turnout. We had the mayor of San Diego represented and the Economic Development Council. Many of the same formats followed in each of these regional conversations. But we heard a lot about the fact that there was this mismatch of jobs that could not be filled and labor that didn't have the skills for today. And that's really, again, the urgency of the work that we do. We are the ones that fill that gap, and we need to really put urgency to that work, and that's, I think, all the members of the task force felt that way. LA is the next photo that you see. Again, standing room only in this photo. And then at the end of the task force's work, we had our last meeting at the end of July. We had 2 wrap-up town hall meetings that Chancellor Harris led. And then again, sold out, standing room only for those. And also, then we went to Consultation Council, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and had a very productive and supportive conversation there as well. The next slide shows you the internal task force members. So there were 26 task force members. 13 of them were internal to the California Community College system. So the very first column shows you the 3 CEOs that were on that task force, North and Southern California represented. The second column shows you the 4 faculty. Lynn at the top represented CTE faculty. Julie Bruno, who was in the audience, represented general ed faculty. Tony Parsons represented basic skills faculty member, and then a counselor, Lionel Wiggins, who specifically focuses on CTE counseling for students, the career exploration and the support that they need. The third column shows you the 3 kinds of vice presidents that we have in our system. So instruction, student services, chief business officer, there's a dean involved internally. And I want to point out a student who was really a remarkable student, but really not unremarkable when you look at all of our students. And by that I mean she really was representative of our students in many ways. She wore many hats on this task force. She was a veteran. She is a student in a non-traditional kind of role. She attends American River College. She's a mother of 2. And just represented a lot of different perspectives of many of our students. And that's the student that you see, Rachel, in the second from the last column, and then a trustee as well. So our internal system was well represented. The next slide shows you the external system. So our partners included Tim Rainey, as the Chancellor Harris mentioned, who is the Executive Director of the California Workforce Investment Board. We had a K-12 voice just below Tim Rainey was represented. We had business represented and sectors that are important to the California economy in that second column. We had labor represented. In the third column, we had John Bauer from California Labor Federation. And certainly social justice in the ACLU was represented there, as well as the voice of young students that are seeking jobs, the Young Invincibles and Brian Burrell. And I want to recognize somebody else that was on the task force, Jim Mayer of California Forward. Would you just raise your hand in the back there? So Jim has been a real stalwart of this work and has been a big supporter and is championing regional and local work to keep this moving forward. Next slide shows you kind of how this work parallels. This is work that extends the work of the Student Success Task Force that began in 2011. And so that task force came up with recommendations that have been being implemented. Similarly, our recommendations are emerging in 2015, But in the same sort of emergency, these task forces have the ability to transform the work that we do at our colleges and to add focus to the work. And again, I want to just say this is the time. While we've got the system's attention and we've got our external partners' attention, it is important that this work continue to move forward, and it has a direct impact not only on CTE student success, but it has an impact on the business and industry and their success within our communities, and therefore the success of our economy as a state. And that, of course, leads the nation. So let's begin with the recommendations. I know that you have them, and we'll try to cover them and give you some sense of what they mean. As you know, there's 25 general recommendations, and I believe you all have the sub-bullets as well. Is that correct? You've got all the parts of
If you look on page 13 of your packet, that's where they start, and the sub-bullets are there.
So we'll give you a high-level view of these categories, but then we'll give you some specific examples or maybe some themes that emerge. Yes, sir.
Questions about the bullets underneath each? Wait till after all the 25 have been presented and then ask?
I'm going to let Chancellor Harris ask that.
Well,
I would say,
I think if there's a burning question about one, we should go ahead and address it rather than wait till all 25 have been presented.
Maybe we can group them by category?
Right.
sure.
I didn't hear that.
No, go ahead. We're going to go by category.
Yeah.
But we're not going to wait till, if you have a question about the student success, I'm not going to make you wait an hour
Yeah,
before we get to.
just as a comment, I mean, there are a number of things quite good, but it's a matter of even getting more input as to what that would look like, or who would take care of that, or.
Now, keep in mind, the next step of this, once you make your decisions in November, is for us to develop an implementation plan similar to the way we did the Student Success Initiative. So what you have here is what the task force thinks needs to be done, and assuming you adopt all or part of these, then the next step, in fact, we've already sort of quietly begun that internally, is to parcel out this work and determine how it gets done.
And since we're in a retreat and it's more informal, I want to ask a very candid question. When we were doing the Student Success Task Force, at some point there was some conversation about approving all or part. And in the strong sense of the chancellor and the board was, we need to approve this as a package,
Body of work.
as opposed to try to do it piecemeal.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you for the recommendation of how we should consider it, and then if there is something that the board feels strongly about, too, should we even consider any modifications to these if it's something that we want to even consider?
Well, we certainly want the board's input, advice, and counsel. I will, in November, recommend that you approve this as a body of work, all 25 of these recommendations and the resulting subparts. But that doesn't mean that they're in any way chiseled in stone. And if the board has advice and counsel on these, we are eager to have that. And of course, as we got into the work on student success, even after the board had passed those recommendations, some of them evolved and were modified as time went on. So it'll be a living process that, assuming you approve it, will start in November.
But right now, before the board will be the recommendation of this package as the task force has developed. But let's go ahead and go through them.
Go ahead, Sunny.
Yes. So recommendation 1 and 2 are in the category of student success. And the recommendation reads, broaden and enhance career exploration and planning, work-based learning opportunities, and other support. So we want to make sure that students early in the game, in high school and middle school, are exposed to really very valuable career planning tools, that they make the best decisions that they can so that they can commit to a school, a college, a major. And we want to make sure that they have some work-based learning along the way so that they can make the best choice. And part of that is learning what you don't want to do in life, in your career, as much as what you want to do. You'll see part of recommendation number 1 is also about really supporting the work of expanding the Cal Grant C and expanding the ability of our students to use those funds for living expenses and supplies and other things that they need to be successful. And we see so many of our CTE students getting hung up because of things that are financial in many ways. And so we want to support them as much as possible through these pathways. Also, improving CTE progress and outcomes depends upon really facilitating the work that the faculty are doing around measuring student learning and meeting a student where they are with the skills that they have when they come in the door, and allowing for some competency-based assessments of those skills so that students can progress along their career pathway. And then contextualizing curriculum, you'll see that in many different avenues, but this is really about all of our students are going to be in the workforce at some point, whether they go on and get a bachelor's degree or they go on and get a master's degree, or they go directly from our degrees or certificates to the world of work. So contextualizing workplace learning, work-based learning, and work readiness skills into the curriculum is something that we heard very clearly from the employers. More soft skills, more work readiness skills across the curriculum, and vice versa, contextualizing important computation and English and communication skills into their curriculum in CTE as well was very clearly expressed by employers. Also, career pathways. You've heard a lot of conversation around this. The state has invested a great deal of money. Yes, sir.
Can we stop there and just raise some things?
Yeah, because what I'd like to do is that still under the student success, or you just moved?
It is.
Yes.
Student success, yes.
She
No,
finished
career
student
pathways.
success,
So if you,
Okay,
have
so
one
I'm
on-
moving to
you
career
have on
pathways to
student
second
success?
category.
Right.
so let's start with the student success category. So Joseph, did you have questions?
Well, it isn't so much questions, but I'd like to focus on a couple of things so that as we move forward, from my perspective, oftentimes things can get lost because it's like, well, there's only so much we can do at the college or something. But like with the planning tools, it would be helpful to know, are there current planning tools that people should be using because, you know, they've been used so well at specific colleges such that, you know, you're probably unaware of these planning tools, or are we going to be developing planning tools? Because I know that when we've used those at the colleges, those have been critical. Because a student can even go on their own. They don't have to have someone standing there. And the next thing is, when you mention about the Cal Grant, that's great. Now, what would we as a Board of Governors be able to do to, say, put that forward to increase the Cal Grant as financial support? Just as you said, our students need financial support. They can't all afford this. And they can't go full-time sometimes because they're working all day. But if they had better financial aid help. And the last one, and I think that this is getting to a professional development issue and needing to get out there and train people and stop thinking that people just are going to learn on their own, is to move to authentic competency-based assessments. I think is a great idea. But people are going to have to be trained because it's going to be the same kind of thing like the SLOs and SLO assessment was. Well, what do you mean? I don't know how to do that. We never did that. Well, maybe you've been doing it, but you didn't know how to do it or how to improve.
Do you have any response?
I'd love to comment on that. I think the task force did not get to the level of suggesting certain education tools, but certainly our California community colleges and some of our high schools and the partnership between them do have some really good models. And part of the work that's going to be really important in the state is going to be sharing those best practices across our system. And also the professional development is critical, not only in the one that you mentioned about competency-based education, but lots of focus on keeping our faculty developing this innovative curriculum. We heard from employers that sometimes the curriculum is changing every 6 months in their field. And so it's professional development is important across the board for all California community college employees, but particularly in fields that are changing this dynamically. So that is certainly a big theme throughout this work. And I'm going to let someone else comment on the Cal Grant, see if they want to.
Well, I can only say that we you know, the board will direct us to make that a budget priority, if that is their pleasure. And then Dan and Vince and others, we make that case to the legislature. And we believe that this is one of the critical factors, just as you point out. A lot of these students who are working, you know, full-time or 2 or 3 jobs makes it hard for them to complete these programs.
Can someone tell me exactly what the Cal Grant C is?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Cal Grant C.
What is the Cal Grant C?
You explain
I mean,
what it is.
Dan, you want to explain the Cal Grant C?
It's a financial aid award that goes to students of various, low levels of financial need, and I think
is in addition to FAFSA? Someone can get this?
Yes.
Yes.
And everybody is able to?
No, there's a limited number of awards.
That's the problem.
And that's
It's a
the problem.
So that's
very
what I'm
limited.
getting at here. So every single student can receive FAFSA if they qualify.
If they qualify.
But every single student that qualifies cannot receive a Cal Grant.
That's right.
So what percentage of our students can get a Cal Grant?
Very small.
So that's why I don't know about it.
Yeah.
So we have a big problem.
Teresa, do you know what the percentage is?
I think
I don't know the
6%.
percentage, but I think I wanted to underscore with the C, the very unique aspect about that is it's targeted at vocational educational programs. And so in addition to what Dan mentioned, there are a very small number of these awards available now. And so the purpose for the recommendation would be to expand the numbers.
And if I'm not mistaken, the fact that the California Community College tuition is so low also limits the amount that a student can access. If our tuition was $40,000 a year, they would access more Cal Grant C money as well. So it's kind of a double whammy for our students. They're not eligible for as much money because our tuition is so low.
Member
We need
Cora?
to look at that.
Use these awards, but they get a very small percentage of the state money that goes out for them for that reason. So if you went to, for example, if you went to a for-profit college with, or a nonprofit college that had a high tuition, you would be getting more benefit from that award than you do at the community colleges. So I think part of the recommendations here is to allow the students who attend colleges to access some more of that money for their cost of living, et cetera.
Member Cora, you had your hand up.
I just had a comment. So mine was relating to the implementation of the student success, and I think the biggest role that people are going to have is going to be the counselors. So I hope that aspect is being emphasized because not only are they now going to have to, like, are they going to be a new set of counselors that are specific to CTE education, or is it going to be the ones that are already working and already tacked on and are going to have more to do? And I feel like that's something we should really focus on, is like having more counselors on site, especially if we're going to be giving them more materials to be giving to students.
We agree with you, and certainly that is one of the things that has come out of the task force recommendation is the importance of the CTE counselor that was on the task force had a particular model that worked at his college. We were not ready to prescribe that to every California community college, but that is one of the best practices. Also having liaisons that are counselors that are specialized in specific kinds of career technical programming. That's another model that's used. More counselors are always a good thing. So I think you'll see this is another area where sharing of best practices and letting the local decision-making occur about what is best at that college to serve its students.
So the process won't be streamlined statewide. It'll be like left up to each college on how they want to.
I think there will be sharing of best practices and sharing why those things are a good thing at a college, and hopefully that will help people make good choices.
I want to just pick up on something that Member Budnick raised, and I see Member Avalos had something he wanted to say, though, but this is going to be a theme for me through the whole thing. When we did the Student Success Task Force, it was in a time where there's tremendous budget contraction in the state, and so we were looking for things that wouldn't cost extra money but could really help make the system more efficient. And then when we did make the system more efficient, the legislature and the governor responded and helped us find more resources. As I read through this, like just the one for the example of increasing the Cal Grant C, that's got to have a significant price tag to it. And as I looked through this, if you could highlight where there's significant price tag, and have we thought about where that funding might come from as well too, because that is going to be a big issue.
Yeah, we will try to identify those cost items as we move through this. But to answer your question, one of our budget requests for the coming budget year is $200 million to implement this program.
Right. And is that
right, Dan? 200 million? Yeah.
And do we think 200 million would be enough to implement? Because all these.
If you were to ask a CEO, they would say no.
Yeah.
But I'll let the chancellor answer that.
Well, it was the Student Success Initiative was a multi-year investment, and we have a number of priorities, including accommodating the continuing enrollment growth and the erosion of the foundation of budgets for all the colleges. So we think $200 million is a reasonable request to begin funding this. Is that going to solve all the financial challenges? No. These are very high-cost programs, and we have to, when we get later into the finance recommendations, you'll see that's one of the toughest things is to figure out how to fund in an ongoing way these programs.
Right, because the only thing I have apprehension about is that we will be like a lot of other state agencies that say, we can solve all these problems if you give us more money. And I want to also identify the problems that we can solve, even if you don't give us more money, but we can make the system more effective. Member Avalos, you had your hand up.
My comments, my comments regarding career centers. So currently, in my tours, I found that career centers right now are all over the place. Right? They're just focused on career exploration. When it comes to CTE, we need career centers that have relationships with industry. Career centers that actually place students in jobs. I don't see that anywhere in any of the community college career centers I've attended.
Placement, yeah.
Job placement is not part of their charter. And that's a low-hanging fruit, and it doesn't cost very much.
And that's a great point. And we had, with the California Investment Board sitting at the table, we had the opportunity to really bring to bear their resources as well. So they do a great deal of career training and workshops and resume writing and interviewing and the front end of all of that. We do the training part, and we're asking them to come help us on our career centers do the job placement that they do so well. So I'm not sure that we need to reinvent the wheel of job placement when we've got systems within our regions that are funded by the federal government to do that job placement, as well as a front end, the bringing folks into the system, attaching them to training, and also placing them.
But how does that enable the college to do their work, right?
They could be co-located on our
If it's
campuses.
co-located, I understand that, but to
Yes.
me, it's the knowledge needs to be resident in the community college. It can't be external.
Right, correct.
So, and I just don't see it's there in my, doing and in my presence. So that's one of the things I feel like is huge for us, to have a better understanding of what our community college career centers are actually doing, and whether there is placement, especially around CT, because we have students who are actually graduating and need to be placed.
Sure.
And that's not happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we agree with you. We agree with you.
Member Estolano, and Member Shaw.
I'm confused though. I don't understand if this is a presentation or is it, are we discussing implementation?
What they're presenting, the
I
task
understand what
force-
they're doing,
Right.
but I don't understand what we're doing,
Right.
what our role is. Because the chancellor just said we're gonna have a whole action plan.
Right.
Okay, so one would think that a lot of these comments are for that discussion as opposed to this one.
You've got that's a very good point. We're getting more information about the recommendations that have been developed over the last year. We're also putting on the table some of the board members' kind of insights into these issues, because then it's going to come back, the recommendations are going to come back to us with the approval, I assume.
Recommendations.
With the.
And then we're gonna have an implementation.
Then we're going to go through, which, like with the Student Success Task Force, we're going to have a series of meetings talking
Okay.
about how we're going to implement some of these recommendations, and then be able to guide that with the chancellor's going to kind of go through. Here's how we're going to take on A, here's where we're going to take on B.
I think I understand that.
But I think that's a good point. Member Estolano, and then Member Budnick.
I'll be brief, because I think Member Shaw's point is really well taken. We have 25 recommendations to go through, and we've done 2. And I think it's a testament to like how much people are engaged in this, because we all want to jump into the things that we've read about. So here's my observation. Many of the recommendations in one section are reinforced by recommendations elsewhere.
Yes.
Right? For example, a lot of stuff in the career pathways reinforces a lot of the counseling stuff we've been talking about, and that's why it's a really nice document. The second thing is, actually, it's the supporting white papers. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read them, but that's where the real meat of this discussion is. You guys had a lot of material to cover. 25 recommendations are hard to get out on paper, and you did it in 25 pages, which is impressive. But to really understand the context of it and understand some of the best practices that are alluded to but not described, you have to read the backup white papers, and they're really good. So I wanted to commend you for that. I found them very meaty and the kinds of things that I think will inform the direction we want to give the chancellor if we move forward with this set of recommendations on the direction we want to take the implementation. So lastly, I would just encourage my fellow board members, let's make sure we can get through blocks of these recommendations. They really are about 6 blocks. 6 blocks, because each of those blocks are discrete areas that warrant quite a bit of discussion.
Member Budnick, and then we'll go back to.
I'll be brief as well. 2 questions. Number 1, in these white papers, is there something that lists the different sectors in California that have the most unmet workforce needs what are those sectors and how many jobs are available if we had the properly trained folks. So that's one piece of information I'm looking for right now. Number two is we talk about Cal Grant C and other types of funding. Do we currently offer additional financial assistance to students who want to go into the areas where we need employees, where there are jobs, where we need the properly trained people? Can you additionally incentivize people via grants who want to go into one of these areas that you may have listed in the white paper?
So I'll answer the question regionally. The work that's happening within regions focuses on the sectors that are important to the regions, the primary sectors as well as the emerging sectors. And the work about the gap between the supply and the demand is done at the regional level. There is a statewide structure in place for example, for healthcare, for making those skill gaps known across the state. I'm not sure I have the answers to those questions, but regionally we've got the answers to those questions.
I would just like to know, is this in here? Which are the sectors?
So that gap, this
Just
one
what
with
page?
the state of California,
Uh-huh.
those are the relevant sectors to California. There's 10 of them that are really, really critical to our economy, and they're listed there, but the skills gap isn't shown there. Is the piece that that's slide number 5, maybe?
So Member Budnick, if you visit the Doing What Matters homepage, you can scroll over each region, and each region will identify which are the priority emergent sector. There's also research papers, labor market research associated with each of those sectors. And then by region, you also see the economic data associated with that region. So we actually, that lives live on our website. And then we cross-reference those same sectors in the regional white paper.
Okay.
Does that help?
I mean, just show me where to go. I mean, if it's one piece of paper that tells me here are the sectors and here are the jobs that need to be filled, that's very simple.
The projector's down. So.
And the second question was, do we currently financially incentivize students to go into those specific careers? We don't.
We do not.
We do not.
That seems pretty obvious.
Okay, we're gonna go on to the career pathways recommendation.
Sure. This is all good. I'm glad you're very engaged in this. Good questions.
No, it's very exciting.
It is, and we're at the exciting part of this, which is student success and career pathways. So, we are really reinforcing this concept of starting career pathways early. We're reaching out to high schools, and the career pathways grants that the state has awarded has allowed us the opportunity to develop the pathways in high school, align them with community colleges, and to really articulate to make a seamless transition from high school to community college and beyond. We also want to be aware that we need multiple entry and exit points onto these pathways. So we have adult students who we are going to have to bring back into the educational system. We need to be careful that we don't just focus on high school to college, but that we also bring in, dislocated workers, veterans that are reentering the educational market, adults that are learning language skills and trying to get into that pathway as well. So a lot of ideas, and again, you'll see that concept of contextualization, work readiness skills across the curriculum, as well as the computational and English and basic skills in the CTE curriculum. So I think with that, then we move on to workforce data and outcomes.
Oh, but I get this one.
There's the projectors down.
And you will have to use the handout.
Yeah,
that
look
was
at your
given to you.
picture of those two lovely women. I insisted on talking about this slide because electrical technology is my area. And so this is taken at Trade Tech College. And I don't think many people know how much an electrical and power transmission worker makes, or what percentage are women. Anybody know what percentage are women?
Valerie should.
1%.
Yes, 1%.
For you,
So we have a lot of work to do on that score. But for an electrical and power transmission worker, a graduate can make $110,000. And this is the actual average earnings of our community college graduates 5 years out. So this is data, hard data. And I love your idea of targeting where the skill gaps are. So that would be my program. So thank you very much.
So let's keep going with workforce data and outcomes. We have a number of different reporting systems in CTE programs. We report Perkins data, we report gainful employment, we report for grants that we have, we report for the California scorecard, and we'd like to see, it's a lot of work on behalf of the colleges that have CTE, and so we'd like to see some common metrics that meet federal as well as state regulations. We want to see the definition of student success broadened. So in CTE, there are many exit and entry points that are valuable to a student. They come in to get a specific sequence of courses. It's less than 12 units. It's a sequence of courses. It helps them get a better job or a promotion, but it is not a degree or certificate, and it doesn't go to transfer. And yet these are success stories in our California Community College, and we as a system need to capture those successes, especially with the focus on accountability, because these are success stories, and we need to count those multiple exit points that really help a student in the workplace. The system needs a student identifier where we can track a student in his or her success from high school through community college, through licensure, to the world of work. And we don't have a coherent system where that is easy to do at this moment in time. Many times we're relying on graduate surveys and somebody completing a survey in order to tell us, was our program effective? And this data is absolutely crucial for program continuous improvement, for us to know how we're doing and how our graduates are doing. Yes, sir.
I just want to reinforce that to say this need to come up with a better definition of student success in today's world and in today's way of training students is important, as well as this student identifier, because we don't have, as far as I know, a good way of showing job placement and getting job placement numbers. And the other place this is now having implications is in the annual accreditation report that has to be filed, and it's stated by the federal government that we have to do those filings, because they're saying to us, well, you're not listing job placement rates, you're not, so doing something here is critical.
Thank you.
Just reinforce that. I know that the president has been keen in the Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education, since the meltdown of so many of these private nonprofit organizations, colleges has happened. This notion of being able to rank or rate schools by their placements, the folks' ability to get a job that will pay for the debt that they've incurred to get the training is critical. And if we have data on our placements and we consider that a success, we will beat those colleges hands down because of the really cost-effective way we're educating folks. So this is a great and very, very important recommendation. I was also struck in the backup paper, you mentioned it in your initial statement about this, how all these reporting metrics are different, and in some cases, contradictory, and that is terrible. So, we can't do anything about federal rules, so I'll be interested later, at a later time, in understanding what the specific recommendations and what can we do to better align those reporting requirements, at least within the state of California.
Yeah.
If it takes legislation or admin, we really have to address that immediately.
Thank you. The last one under workforce data and outcomes that I want to highlight is not all of our colleges have equal ability to really dissect and analyze the kind of complex information about the labor market that we need. And so assistance for those colleges that don't have the expertise on board, and also visualization techniques to help people analyze and understand that data and get to explaining to your community, your high schools, your high school counselors, your parents, about where the real skill opportunities are in your community. I think those are all things that are featured in recommendation number 6. So, Lynn?
So now I'm back to my favorite practical topic and everything having to do with students. So here you see a picture of a sheet metal and structural metal certificate, and this person makes $64,209 a year for a sheet metal certificate. So not one size fits all. So students need to know all their options. And you can't have students be segregated into one thing, or if they only think they could do nurse's aide, maybe they could be a machinist, maybe they could be an electrician. I mean, we want to give options to our students, and we want them to be high-wage, high-skill options. So this is what career technical education offers to us. That's one of the reasons I think it's so important for our students and our economy. So let's go on to curriculum. So this had many recommendations, and this is where faculty take the lead. And I think it's really important to remember that this is where we structure ourselves so that we deliver instruction in the classroom. And so the thing I think is really important for us to know is at one point it used to be career technical education versus academic, but I want to implore you to believe with me that CTE is academic and academic is CTE. We need to make that crossover so that basic skills are embedded into CTE courses, and CTE courses and practical things are embedded into our academic programs. Amen. Oh, thank you. Can I get an amen?
And it's Sunday morning.
Yes, okay. So you know, they're all like really important. I mean, you see there are lots of sub-bullets under each one, but I wanted to talk about the portability across institutions so that if we teach a business program in 113 of the community colleges, it seems like if my student moves from Long Beach to this district, the courses that they take at Long Beach should count. And it's not really working very smoothly right now, and that needs to be improved so that we have a lot of institutions working together and we make it easy for our students to get credit for the good work they do, so that we're not having them take the beginning courses all over again. So this portability across institutions, I think, is really important. This is really urgent. This work is really urgent, and we need to clarify some of the rules that we have in place that I believe at the colleges are being misapplied. They don't understand some of the things that can be done to make your CTE programs work. So professional development for our faculty is absolutely essential to make this work, and for our counselors who are faculty. But I just think that if we give some attention to this, we can really make a change in how we do business and make it so much easier for our students and give them the information they need to make wise decisions about their career. You want to say something? Oh, a question. Go ahead.
So I think something that would be scary for a student to join this program is exactly what you said, is that lack of like connection from college to college, from transferring over. And I think that would be like, as a student, I would be a little reluctant. And I think something that would help would be like a website like Assist maybe, that could, because that way if employers want more qualifications and more degrees, they can update that through the website and the students can see. Because another concern I have is, what if like the program they're working towards the next year wants another qualification based off what you've had, and they want you to add on more courses. And I think if there was a website where that information was updated every year and you could see what courses transfer, that would streamline the process and bring like a little bit of security that the courses that they are taking will be able to go somewhere else.
I think those are good points, but I'm mindful of Member Shaw's recommendations that we're going to get the substance of the recommendation before we go into tactics about how to implement them, because we're going to count on the Chancellor's office about that too. So I want to make sure we fully understand the substance of the recommendations that you're making.
So another part I want to talk about is the course identifier numbers, that work that's being done to try to smooth this system out, and now some attention is being paid to do that for the career technical education courses. And I think this will help with what you were talking about, as well as this portability across institutions. And, you know, this work is really transformative. And some of it costs, but some of them it doesn't cost. It's just us, I think, working better together and talking together. And I really think this is transformative for us. And it's a time to do it. We have a really nice sweet spot right now, I think. So this is my favorite recommendation. Oh, go ahead.
Are you done with presenting?
Yeah, I'm done with curriculum, but go ahead.
Well, one of the things I want to point out, that as I read through this, and maybe it's a strategy, but I want to put it on our radar now, in terms of making the process move more quickly. One of the things we lost a couple of years ago that was very helpful in the CTE program was standalone course approval. And personally, I think we need to get standalone course approval back. It was critical if at a CTE committee, we need to start such a course, then you had the ability to do that locally before you did anything more with it. I'll just throw that out. And I do think some best practices in non-credit need to be provided because we have so few colleges that use non-credit. And yet with the change in the funding mechanism, this will be critical.
So if you can finish curriculum, and then we'll see if there's any questions about the curriculum recommendations.
I mean,
done.
is this going to be open to a discussion after
Yes.
present?
We're
Because
trying
I
to
thought
get
this was going to be a discussion.
It is. We're trying to get we're going to get all the recommendations on the table.
all comments until they're done, and then let's have a discussion.
Right.
Should be
So-
done with that section.
She said she was done.
I just have, again, I hate to say anything because I'm so new, and this is just my third meeting. But I've talked just in terms of talking to friends or people who were associated with the LA district. It seems to me that you mentioned earlier the importance of professional development for the faculty and counselors. And so my question is, where is that among the recommendations? Because on page 17, it says local faculty has primary responsibility for curriculum development and delivery. And what I've heard just in the couple of months that I've been associated with this, there's a lot of resistance from staff. Now, again, I don't know, maybe this is just LA, I don't know. But, so one would think you would overcome that through some sort of professional development, because curriculum sort of is the one would think the most important thing as
Well,
you move
number
forward.
15 talks about professional development under CTE faculty.
Oh, I
And
see.
not to minimize the contributions of the staff people at the community college, the classified people, they are like the backbone. I mean, they're going to need to come on board too. So, I think we can't just, it's all about faculty. But this section, the curriculum, is where faculty sort of take a primary role.
I see. I went to 12. I didn't turn over. Okay, 15.
That was a great transition into CTE faculty.
Hold on 1 second. One quick moment.
Member Budnick, then Member Mountain.
President Baum, can I just ask a process question?
Yes.
I was very excited about a discussion that was going to happen
It is,
today.
right,
Can
yes.
we not be mixing a discussion with a presentation? Let's finish the presentation, no more discussion, and then when it's over, the presentation's over.
What I want to be able to do is
did say she was
allow for
Not with the whole
clarification.
presentation.
I want to allow for questions. If somebody's, like you asked the question, what does a Cal Grant see? I think that's, those types of questions would be helpful so we
It's
all
at
know.
the end of the segment.
We'll go
But so many questions within a section get answered in the next section.
Right. So we're going to go through a section. We're going to see if there's any questions, and then we'll go to the next section, and then we'll have a more robust discussion.
So we're not going to be giving any recommendations now as we go through this. Only questions, right?
Questions.
Perfect.
Yes.
For now. Okay, for now. It's power through.
Right. Okay, so let's go on to, are there any other questions about the curriculum recommendations? Okay, we're going to go on to the CTE faculty recommendations.
Okay, this is my favorite recommendation. We do need more industry experts in our classroom, and we need the people in our classroom to make sure they're up to industry standards or ahead of industry standards, because we want to be sure that we're teaching our students what they need to know to go out and do the jobs of tomorrow. And some of these career technical education areas are changing frighteningly quickly. And you can think of them just the computer updates, your software updates on your iPhone. Like, don't they come through like every week you get an update? I mean, somebody needs to be fixing and doing the behind the scenes. And it's really important for our faculty to make sure our students can keep up to date. So we need to increase the pool of qualified CTE instructors. We need to do professional development of our current instructors. And we need to start thinking about ways we can entice those industry leaders to enter the field of teaching, even part-time. Part-time would be perfect, really. And so we need to look at some of the ways that we're selecting our faculty and the hurdles we make them jump through. So all CTE faculty want our students to get a high-wage, high-skilled job. And my colleague David Morse from the Academic Senate corrected me and said, that's what all faculty want. But I think that when you're a CTE faculty, there's a more direct link, because when people leave my classroom, they don't transfer. They go out on the union job site or non-union job site, but they go out and work. So it's sort of more immediate. And we want to be sure that our faculty have the tools in their toolbox to do the job they need to do to fill that 1 million skill gap. So this is a really another transformative and urgent recommendation.
So Mike, I did have a question about that too, because it relates back to the budget question. And I saw that, is there a it's a politically sensitive issue, but some fields are harder to find faculty willing to teach because of the they can make much more in their profession. And we'd had trouble at Pasadena with nursing instructors. How do you tackle that within the recommendations?
A lot of the CTE faculty, that's the case. They could make more in industry, but they have a commitment to teaching. They want to teach. They feel like they want to pass on what they know, especially if they've been in their career a while. You know, there are other ideas that are being discussed too of ways to incentivize people to choose to teach in these areas. So, you know, that could be a budget issue also. But I think if we re-look at and do some more examination of how we select our faculty and how people know they can teach in the community college and make a nice pathway for them to come from industry to the community college, now it's pretty hard to be a part-time teacher.
And one of the recommendations does speak to linking up with industry to help encourage them to financially underpin some of those, their employees teaching for us over a period of time. So there are some, that question is answered in some of the subparts.
And there are, again, in the state, some best practices around that we can share with each other as well. And those have been negotiated with labor in some cases. In other cases, industry is offsetting their own employees to come and teach for us. So there's some best practices around that.
Any questions about, any other board questions about faculty to Member Sumner?
Regarding this, it's like we always are talking about providing the professionals developmental for counselors and teachers, but we're always cutting the budget. If we can't help the ones that aren't the CTE instructors, we need to get back to the basics in some ways, because some of those teachers and instructors that are out there right now, they don't have the resources, they don't get the training. Some of them are frustrated because I've had some elementary school teachers, junior high and high school people, and college people coming up to me now, which sort of caught me off guard, and they're like, we need more training. We're not as computer literate as some of the people that are out there, because everything is changing IT. They're frustrated. So we need to help them back in the colleges at a lower level to help them, and their passion is there. And if you don't have the passion, that's what you're talking about. People make less money because they want to be teachers. So we need, wow, it's getting louder in here. But I mean, we need to give them the resources and commit some money to them, because I don't think we're really doing a good job at that. We have the passions out there.
Member Belinsky?
And one other piece in this that to point out again is the issue of minimum qualifications. And so the question becomes, will that get assigned to the state Senate, who always begins the discussion around minimum qualifications and makes recommendations to the Board of Governors? So I assume as a question that they will be the people involved in this?
I see the chancellor noted.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Member Perry?
Current process in place for recruiting. If you identify 5 leaders in the field, you know, in computers, whatever it is you want to bring, what is the process for recruiting someone like that to become like a part-time CTE faculty member?
Well, there is a kind of a book of minimum qualifications that the Senate works on every 2 years. And it lists in there what the qualifications are. And so you need an associate degree with 6 years experience or a bachelor's degree with 2 years experience. And then there is some little bit of a gray area related to equivalency. If you're like an eminent bonsai gardener, maybe you could not have that qualification. So it's a little bit, we could use a better system, I
Well, my
think.
question wasn't so much about the qualifications as it was for the recruitment.
Yeah.
If we're looking to burnish the faculty in this particular area, is there any kind of process in place for that kind of identification and recruitment?
I think most colleges kind of do it on their own, however they do it. Although I think many of these recommendations, we're depending on our industry partners to help us and work more closely with us, which was why the task force was designed with those inside-outside partners.
It's a connection that those faculty have to the industry, the dean has to the industry, and the relationships that make that communication happen to get somebody to apply for a part-time job. Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to address in 13 and 16, how to increase the pool, and you'll come up with strategies to do that? Member Belinsky, and then we'll...
The other thing I'd throw into what you're saying is the quality of the CTE advisory board that you have at your local college.
Yes.
And we don't always have those. It's critical because that would establish connections with the industries.
Okay, we're going to go on to the next area, regional coordination.
Okay, that's me too. Labor market information is really important in trying to figure out what our state needs. And we want to try to take some of the burden off individual colleges and work more closely as a region. So not every college has to do everything. But on the other side, each college needs to have flexibility to meet the needs of their community. But this idea to regionalize things could really change the way we do business as community colleges. So we want to, number 17 is to strengthen this communication coordination. We want to look at our, number 18, look at our regulations to try to get people to work, play better together, really. And I think the time has really come that people really are interested in doing this because they can see it as an advantage for their college. That not every college has to have everything and do everything. Maybe we could share some things, especially like, for example, the LA district. Some of them are very geographically close, or even, in the other urban areas. So we need to promote career exploration, which we talked about earlier, and this is kind of what we were talking about, the overlapping recommendations. To promote CTE as a secondary, post-secondary option. And this has to be done on a regional basis because there's a regional economy and there's a sub-regional economy. It's important for us to sort of have the bigger picture. And it's really important, and colleges don't like to carry the risk of, say, starting a brand new program in some kind of out there field, and they're off by themselves, and they have to buy all this equipment. Like, why couldn't we do this as a region and sort of share the risk, and then have a better program that has the portability across institutions, so it's better for our students, and we invest our money in a way that really works for the whole region, and not one college is sort of responsible if it doesn't work out, if the industry goes bust or whatever. So to try to work regionally is something that I think the Doing What Matters framework is sort of moving us towards, and this is more recommendations about how to do that to better serve our students.
I'm going to let you go on to the next one because that's the last bucket, and then we will open it up for more questions or comments.
Okay, so this is another practical picture of our health technicians. And I'm not going to talk about nurses, but there are other there's like a health information tech, which is a certificate, and they make $60,000 a year. And this is another example of the regional idea that I was talking about. That mannequin you see there, they can cost up to $60,000 to $100,000. And they talk and they act like a real patient. But maybe not every college needs to have 10 of these. Maybe we could share the equipment. And CTE programs are expensive. Maybe in math class you just need a whiteboard and a marker. but in a health information technology training program or a paramedic training program or a radiation therapy tech program, you need equipment, you need stuff, and you need our students to do hands-on activity. And it's important that they're trained in a way that can really make them quality workers out there. This is what our industry partners want. And a paramedic makes $76,000, and a radiation therapy tech makes $98,000. These are really good jobs. And this is what our community college is doing, and we need to help them do a better job training these essential workers for the aging baby boomers.
So Lynn did a great job of setting up why these programs are more expensive. The equipment, you know, if you have a nursing program and you need many of these high fidelity mannequins, or you need other simulation environments, the facilities are expensive, the equipment is expensive. In many cases, you've got small class sizes that are dictated to you by accreditation agencies outside of our general college accreditation. You have formats that are very teacher intensive. You have internships, clinicals, and supervision that's required, sometimes in life and death scenarios. So this is really expensive stuff for us to do as colleges, and we do it because there's a community need, not because there's a revenue on the other side of that. So it's very important for us as a system to make sure that we incentivize colleges in offering these high-cost programs. The task force looked at the predominant models across the nation about how you deal with the high cost of CTE. There's basically two fundamental approaches to this. One is the state funds you at a different level for high cost CTE, and those are tiered sometimes, nursing always being at the highest end. And then that would be differential funding. The other model is differential tuition. So we pass the cost of the high-cost CTE onto the student. They pay a different tuition for us when they come to take these classes. The task force rejected both of those models. Certainly, the passing the cost on to the student is not within the culture and the framework of California community colleges. We don't just pass on our costs to our students. It's a cultural. It's just not going to happen in California anytime soon. And the differential funding piece is extremely difficult to keep current and to dissect. How much does it cost in this college to teach nursing versus that college to teach nursing? Because you'll get some variation, but it shouldn't differ tremendously. We rejected both of those models, and we're essentially saying, without tying Dan Troy's hands or the chancellor's hands in figuring this out, we really need a system that funds us in a sustainable and predictable way for these programs. And there are a number of ways to do it, and I don't have all the answers, but I'm confident that our chancellor will have some answers. But I do have to tell you, and if he doesn't, Dan Troy will. I do have to tell you that this is not something that you can invest for a while and then hope that we can just pick it up with the rest of our budgets. Most of our California Community College budgets locally are about 85 to 90% already committed to ongoing costs. We have about 8% of our budgets, maybe if we're lucky, 15% of our budgets to really do creative and innovative things that are discretionary. Sometimes that means buying extra paper towels. But we can't be on the front edge of workforce training with the funding system as it is right now, and we've got to do that differently. Lynn mentioned the risk. The risk of starting a new expensive program is extremely high, and it can't be borne just on one individual college. So many states will take the risk on by developing curriculum at a statewide level. Model curriculum is developed together as a state. Doesn't mean you can't regionalize it and localize it and make it fit your community. But that's a way of managing risk, as well as investing in either regions or the statewide to really be future forward thinking in workforce development. Because there is a significant amount of risk of being right on the front edge of where business and industry is. And sometimes business and industry gambles wrong, and we put into place programs that are extremely high in cost, and the last thing we want is for trained workers to not have jobs after we've invested public funds and after our students have invested time and energy. And so all of these are about certainly making sure that we have predictable, sustainable funding. You'll see some things in there about looking at fees differently. So we do not want to disincentivize students or marginalize those students that may not be able to pay, but we do want to look at, there's a very real role of consumable supplies in some of these training fields. Some things you just can't get back as a college, and the student can't walk away with, which is how we look at fees. But that doesn't mean there's not a real cost to that that's every semester piling up. And so we need to look at that and not disincentivize students. So we're asking, could the BOG waiver extend to cover those kinds of fees if it was possible? Also, facilities renovations and modernizations, are there some regulations that we can be more flexible about so the colleges can keep up their facilities to keep up with industry and demand? And then the last one is really about finding ways to, in a meaningful way, bring private, public, federal support and investment into the workforce development system. So we're not just asking for the California community colleges to buck up and put more money behind this. We're asking for our partners in this work to take this work seriously enough to invest in it as well. So I think with that, I'm looking forward to the robust discussion.
And we're gonna take a little extra time than we have on the agenda for this, so I wanted to open it up to the board for questions first about any of the presentations and then secondarily comments. So, Vice President Estolano.
I have many questions, so I'll just try to take a few in order.
We need your mic.
Oh, sorry. I'd like to go back to course identifier. This is really just a question. So I remember a previous presentation at this body, I don't know how many months ago, Chancellor, about the whole course identifier system and the effort to do that in relationship to the degree for transfer. But I also recall that it was really expensive, and I was shocked by how slow it was. I know you guys were probably moving at a breakneck pace, but as a lay person, I was really surprised how long it was going to take to roll out. So I guess I want to ask you all, and then maybe Pam, to put you on the hot seat. If we were to try to put CTE, because I don't think CTE is anywhere near on a priority, right? The priorities were associate degrees for transfer, if I recall the presentation correctly, and that made sense, totally made sense. But if we tried to get CTE in the system on the current funding structure, which decade would we get there in? I'm only being slightly sarcastic. I mean, like when would that happen under current funding?
Yeah, it's moved a lot quicker than I think anybody thought it would. We got those now 1,900 transfer degrees. The vast majority of those courses CID articulated in less than 3 years. So to answer your question, if we move the CID process into career tech education, I don't think it's going to be done in 3 months. But I don't believe, especially considering a lot of the CID work already done, is the prerequisites for the CTE programming. I suspect you'd see in 24 to 36 months the vast majority of CID work done up and down the state. Now that's led by the faculty, and they've done a Herculean job thus far. I think it would move more quickly than most of us would.
But the only thing I want to add to that, and
wait, you said 24 to 36 months, all the CTE courses would be done, you think?
I think if the transfer work that's been done thus far is any indication, David, is it reasonable over the next 3 years to see a great deal of work done in that regard?
David, you can come to the table. Go ahead.
Because you also probably
academic senate.
You also probably can't sustain that same punishing pace that you did in the first 24 months, right?
All is a tough thing to say because people are constantly creating curriculum programs, so all is a moving target. But we have already begun with the CID process for several areas, including addiction studies, culinary arts, biotechnology, emergency medical services, commercial music, and automotive technology. One of the things that will make doing the CID for career technical education somewhat less complicated is because it's internal primarily, and not in all cases, but most of them are going to be internal to our system. We don't have to rely on the CSU system. And that was one of the big slowdowns, previously on the transfer degrees.
Okay, that
so
makes sense.
I would say, would we have a Within 3 years, would we have a very substantial amount? And again, we're already partway down the road, and I would certainly think absolutely we could have very significant work done in that time.
Thanks for backing me.
And that's what I wanted to
David, go ahead and just stay there for
But that is what I wanted to say, is the CSU piece has been what slowed us down, and still is.
Member Estolano, you're next, and then Member Reed.
Yeah. Okay. I was looking at the question of recruiting CTE instructors, and not to be a complete nerd, but page 20 of your white paper. This is on curriculum and instructors that the Academic Senate did. So I didn't bring Post-it notes, so I don't have it tabbed right here. But it essentially talked about, it's at the top of the page, so this is about equivalency for somebody who comes out of the profession, may not have that I guess, most people would probably, the AA or the bachelor's, or in some cases, if I read this white paper, even master's, right? So it says, however, perhaps the most important factor regarding this issue is the concept of equivalency and what a district might consider to be equivalent to an associate's degree. This is the question, this is the key thing. Some manner of training might be developed that would give prospective instructors the academic or pedagogical background that they are lacking, at least to a degree that a district might declare the individual to have equivalence to an associate degree. No such program is currently in place, but given appropriate resources, developing a viable one could be explored. This is one of those recommendations. It came out of your guys' white paper, where you seem to have a potential solution, and this also goes to the regional question, like not every region is going to have the resources to develop this type of program. So is this what you're hoping the recommendations, the implementation might come up with? Because I looked at that and said, oh wow, that sounds like a fantastic solution, and if you could do it either on a regional or a statewide level, then you could accelerate, because not every district's going to have the capacity to figure out equivalency for all the different kinds of CTE programs. So your thoughts on how to take this one point on page 20 and scale it up would be really interesting.
Sure. I think that is something, so in terms of the equivalency question, once again, there are a couple of things we could do. We've already talked about having some conversations to give colleges, statewide a little better guidance and ways to deal with some of those issues. But in terms of the issue of helping to provide some academic background and training for someone who may have subject matter expertise but without really the pedagogical knowledge, that's something that absolutely we would have, and one of the primary ways that immediately occurs to us is the Academic Senate already has what we've developed in the last couple of years, our Professional Development College, which is a kind of an ongoing program with different sorts of modules that we can provide training in faculty development for faculty in different areas. The first one that we did involved faculty leadership. We've already got some that we are working on in terms of curriculum for part-time faculty. We could very well develop something along those lines within that structure. So the structure is already in place. We would have to develop the curriculum for it that would then perhaps provide some training that would then satisfy districts that you've got somebody who has the subject knowledge but also has some classroom background training to be able to really educate the students as well.
So you need like a pedagogy in a box module, in a sense, you have so many CTE fields. So you just have to make sure you have some level of training and instruction. Right?
But the different CTE fields is the subject matter expertise.
Right, I get that.
The instructional expertise, obviously there are differences instructing in different areas, but I think we're looking for something of a more overall kind of a understanding there.
Can I ask in 2 other levels and then I'll back off? Sure. Okay. I'm trying to confine it here. The CTE advisory boards, thank you. I don't know if it was Joseph who said, so I kept circling this saying, okay, CTE advisory board, I can imagine all kinds of mischief. I could imagine a 51-person board, kind of like a WIB in some places we know, where it's the same old people that are on it. They never show up. When they show up, they sleep. Or it could be 5 people that do show up. They're really intense. They're really good about their particular field, but they're in their industry, and so they don't know the new emerging industry. So what is the reality of these CTE advisory boards? How many members are they on typically? Do they really exist in every college? And how do we make this actually fit what you guys are looking for, and we are looking for, something that's responsive to the current and emerging emerging sectors of strength for California's regions.
So let me start that one, and then I'll put
Okay.
to either of the faculty
Okay.
that want to address this. It's the whole gamut,
Okay.
as you can imagine. However, I think what this process has brought forth is let's say in San Diego, we have 4 programs at 4 different colleges that are the same, and there's enough demand that we can do that, but we're engaging employers one by one in our advisory committees. That does not get us meaningful input all the time. And so we've moved to nursing, where every district has nursing, we bring all of the major employers together once, and it's a much more meaningful and engaged and productive conversation. So I think that you'll see some improvements made already just by having gone through this process, and the work that we're doing within regions to strengthen lots of different things, and advisory boards is one level of that kind of more meaningful, more productive kind of engagement and dialogue between business and colleges. I don't know if you want to add to that.
So industry doesn't like it either.
Yeah.
When we have Boeing right next to Long Beach City College, and the machine tool, the electrical, all these departments always ask Boeing to come to their advisory boards. So to me, a regional system is the answer, because you could get higher level people from Boeing, let's say, and it would service all the colleges in our region. It's just, we're not doing a good enough job connecting to industry. And like she said, it runs the gamut. Some of them are fabulous and they do a really great job. Some are, just sort of, oh yeah, check the box, we did it. But that's not what we want, and that's not going to help our students. We need CTE advisory boards that the faculty listen to, and we have a dialogue.
Right, but it doesn't overtax industry so that they disengage.
Right.
So that's one where in the implementation plan, Vaughn, this is going to be really important to at least put up some models. It's not going to be one size fits all. But what I know about a lot of workforce development systems, usually the system that's in place is really not effective at all. And if it is, it's because of the sheer force of will of some individuals in a particular area, right? But this is one that we have to find a way to engage industry that makes sense for them. And I just think there must be good models out there that we can really try to push down as this board. This has got to be important. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit.
And the answer is multifold, right? So it's yes, working by sector so that we don't fragment the employers as well as us. And we need to do a regulation fix in order to acknowledge these regional sector strategies. We need to also have the right focus on the right outcomes. So the moment we care about the wages and the skill builders and the job placement, then the incentives are all lined up. And then, of course, we need to have the curriculum model process for these emergent, once industry advises, we need the ability to fund and change and underwrite the change. So again, the fix is never, just one arrow. We're going to need the combination to work together.
Okay, and my last one, I swear.
Can I throw something in there?
Yeah, go ahead, Joseph.
The other thing in that putting together this regional thing is to find, because I don't know what's going on in some of your regions, but I can think of other ones, to find a way to make colleges not have to be competitive with one another.
Yes.
Because that is very destructive also, the constant competition, and that constant focus on FTES and did we make our target number and will we get the enrollment growth money? All of that has to be a part of the conversation.
And then the last one is on the funding model. I just want to commend you that actually some of the funding suggestions were throughout. It was actually kind of nicely done, the way you approached it. So it strikes me, and I think I'm hearing this from you guys, that one of the ways the state could step in is actually funding these studies, labor market studies. Not every college has to figure out the labor market studies for developing curriculum, for example, new curriculum, right? It could be done at a regional level, and maybe the state should be in a position to do that because our regions are so different. I'm thinking about Central Valley versus Los Angeles versus the Bay Area. But the part that I still can't quite get my head around is how you pay for the more expensive CTE. And so I'm wondering if the idea of having the state set up a pool of funds available to address the cost differential between the high-need CTE programs in various regions and what you're actually getting for the delivery of services. That's obviously going to require a lot of lobbying and legislation at the in Sacramento, but this is an area where the state needs to step in because it's for the good of the state, and the regions are so different in terms of their capacities. So I'd love to hear just a little bit more about some more specific. I know you guys punted completely on this, but on the big question of how to fund the differential, but if there's even just a few suggestions other than get industry to help us pay for it. I don't know if there are any other thoughts you had about that. Lynn, you look like you have to say something.
Well, you know, a lot of the CTE work has been grant funded.
Yeah.
And that's not workable. You know, this kind of wondering if you're going to get funded and competing with your sister college that's across the street. You know, we have to figure out a better way. So whatever the funding model, it needs to be sustainable. That's kind of my position on it.
And I think there's an opportunity to target it to CTE. It can't really just come to us in the general fund in a way that is a free-for-all for everybody that needs money, which is, after the recession, a significant need. I mean, there's need everywhere across our campus. It can be targeted for, as Vaughn mentioned, the outcomes we're looking for: sector-based, high need in your region, high wage, high demand, high skill, and professional development. And there will be, you know, this will work nicely with Paul Steenhausen's work. How do you share best practices across the state? How do we, it shouldn't be every college trying to get their word out, but how do we make effective platforms for sharing the good things that are happening and that can solve problems? Because right now it's just word of mouth and who runs into who. So I think, you know, funding those kinds of things, professional development specifically, engagement of employers in a more meaningful way, in targeting equipment, supplies, facilities, those kinds of things. I think it's got to come to you have the ability through the funding to get our attention, make our focus and our emphasis on something. And this is the time to make it CTE, because it has been funded in a haphazard sort of way through grants that you can patch together, anything that you can put at it. And that's not sustainable, and it's not future thinking.
So we're going for questions, and then I see we do have a public comment.
We have about 3.
On this topic?
On CTE.
So then we'll go to board discussion. But so questions on the recommendations. Gary? Member Reed?
Comes to my mind in regards to nursing. We've talked about that a half a dozen times here this morning. But what is being done, if anything, in working with the national or state associations that deal with these particular areas like nursing? Because as I understand it, it's not that we are having a problem finding nurses that would teach in the classroom. It's the California Nursing Association that sets a higher standard for themselves for their profession to teach in our classrooms. So are we doing anything like with the Accounting Society or the American Dental Association or anything at a higher level to address some of these issues and some of our problems? Or could we?
It certainly has been a conversation nationally. I'll just speak to nursing for a long time. We haven't gotten anywhere. I don't know. I think there's a real reluctance to dilute the academic qualifications that nurses feel are important in training the next generation of nurses. That's generally the message we get back. And region to region, it will differ. If you are having trouble finding master's degree nurses, some regions really, they don't have a population that can support that faculty body. Others, there are plenty of master's degree nurses in the hospitals, and so it's not so much of a problem. I don't know of anything recent that's happened at the state level that has made any movement in those arenas. It was very difficult to move the credentialing down when a discipline has decided that's what it takes to train the next generation. I haven't found it successfully done. In fact, we're moving the other way. We're moving to where the entry-level jobs in healthcare are moving to a bachelor's, and what used to take a bachelor's is a master's, and what used to take a master's is a doctorate. So we're actually moving, as liability and all kinds of other pressures are on healthcare providers, we're moving the other direction, at least in healthcare.
One only other question I have is that in the number of years that I've been on this board, we've had a number of presentations on various subjects brought to us on best practices. But it seems to me that oftentimes the best practices are very limited in scale. And the fact is we can't seem to scale up those best practices to serve the 2 million students that we have in the classrooms. And that's been a long time concern of mine, is that, you know, I've seen these presentations and they're wonderful, but they affect 12 students in a particular school. And, you know, I hope we can get beyond that and address at a higher level the masses that we are you know, charged with educating.
So, and I've got next is Member Avalos, then Member Malayamed, and Member Shaw, and Member Sumner, and then Member Hawkins, and then Member Epstein.
Everyone's talking. First of all, thank you very much. It was a great presentation. One of the things that I'm missing a little bit, though, and I think Member Butnick talked about this, you talk about 1 million jobs, right? Where are they? Okay. What I want to understand is, by region, where these 1 million jobs are, and I want to know what the capacity to fill those jobs by college in those regions. Because what I'm seeing is there's a major gap, right? So if the capacity, for example, just take nursing, let's say there's 10,000 jobs available in the Bay Area. How many nurses are we putting out, or you know, nursing degrees are we putting out in that Bay Area with all the community colleges in that area? Help me understand what the gap is, right? And once we have the gap, then we can identify how do we spend or how do we fund that. But how do we know where to spend our money if we don't know what the gaps are? And then we talk about faculty, we can talk about, you know, all these different things in recommendations that get to what we're trying to achieve. But I just didn't see the coherency between the 1 million jobs to where the gaps are.
So the skill gap of 1 million middle skilled workers is really a projection for the next 10 years. And as I understand it, we're on track to produce, it's a 1.9 projection, 1.9 million middle skilled jobs needed in 10 years. We're on track to produce about half of that in our system. So the projection is for 1 million short. Now, as I understand it, the regions are doing that work of the skill gap within the region. So in San Diego and Imperial counties, our region is looking at those sectors that are important to our area. We're working with our Workforce Investment Board and our Economic Development Agency to fine-tune what's the need in this region and what's the supply, both community college supply as well as proprietary college supply. Let's be real about who's being put out. And that fine-tuning of the gap is being addressed by regions. I think we could put the statewide sector navigators together, and there's a sector navigator statewide that leads each of those, and we could get you those numbers. We don't have them today.
Doesn't that lead to inefficiencies, though? I mean, isn't that what we're talking about here? When you have regional, you know, doing additional work in one region, the same region's doing the same type of work in another region, isn't that inefficient? I mean, to me, if we look at it holistically across the state to understand what the issues are, then, you know, there's cross, you know, opportunity to learn and develop.
I think that's a very valuable point. I think most of our students want to stay within our region. They don't want to pick up and move to San Francisco. So that regional focus is important for our students and their families and so forth. So I don't want to in any way say that point is not important. It is important to have a statewide look, especially for the Board of Governors. But and we just don't have that today for you.
Right.
So
what I meant was inefficient in the sense that I get it. You know, people want to stay regionally, but you know, if someone's developing a strategy in a certain region and they're developing the same strategy in a different region, why aren't we talking across regions? Just like you guys talk about regional collaboration, that's what we're missing, right, to a certain degree. And so to me, it's like, you know, we all have all these great recommendations which are valid, but what are we trying to address in each region is really valid as well. So that's my perspective.
Thank you.
Member Malayamed?
Along that line, I'm kind of thinking if we're so LA County, Orange County, where I am from, lots of colleges there. So if you want to say, well, we're just going to do a nursing program at 2 colleges in each county, how are you going to shift faculty or a smaller field, you know? And how will the faculty who are doing nursing now, their school's closing it, are they going to go to another school? Are they going to get tenure? I'm just kind of thinking through how does that work? If we're going to that regional model, is that going to be a many-year thing? And then are we going to change a few other things while we're doing it? Like maybe there's too many board of trustees in each college? I'm just saying. So, you know, I'm just fantasizing, you know, how are you going to shift faculty and is this going to make us want to do more other things that we've
I don't think anybody is saying today, let's close all the nursing programs and have only 2 in a region. I think we're saying the supply and the demand have to be very finely tuned, and that does change with the labor market needs. And as students, for example, if there's a very high cost program in biotechnology in San Diego County, we have 2 colleges that do biotechnology, but we have students all over the county that want to study it. So rather than duplicating it everywhere, is there a way to have the first year of general skills be done somewhere, then the high-cost, high-end second year is done in a more kind of funnel shape somehow, so that you're not duplicating the high cost everywhere, but you are providing opportunity and you are fine-tuned with the workforce needs of your region. So are there ways that we can create efficiencies in that way, rather than either cut students out of a pipeline because they can't drive that far for 2 years, or are there things like that that we can do to work collaboratively and make skills portable for students?
So are you thinking about this for future developments, not readjusting what's going on currently? Future
I think
programs?
it could be moving forward. How do we increase access? If there are high demand jobs that are needed in our community, how can we increase access for students to those high demand, high wage, high skilled jobs? So it could be to current programs that are existing now.
So are you envisioning any of them closing and moving to another school, I guess is what I'm
That's
wondering.
usually a very local college decision. We have policies on discontinuance of programs, and there's you work very close with the academic senate and program review and your advisory boards to determine there is no need in that area. There's no need in our community. What do we do now? And usually it's retrain.
Well, no, I'm sort of thinking like there's 5 programs and you want to whittle it down to 2 in the region. How would that happen, I guess is what I'm asking. I'll just throw it out. You don't have to answer it.
I think that we'll get into that when the recommendations come in for implementation by the Chancellor's office. So then I have Member Shaw, who will be followed by Member Sumner, Member Hawkins, Member Epstein, and Member Conway.
The whole notion of regional coordination, and again, I'm new, so I don't know a lot. So can you tell me who will lead this effort, or is there currently a model that's extraordinary here in the state, a region that's really operating in an extraordinary fashion? Certainly, we don't have it in LA. I don't know. Where is it?
LA is always special for us. The difficulty from where you sit is that every region is different and it has its own personalities and own drivers. So when we went up to talk to the North Far North, the dilemma with the schools, the colleges there, that they're so geographically far apart that the nature in which they regionally collaborate is slightly different. So for example, they talked about, could we actually create mobile labs and rove the labs between our colleges so that we can share these expensive programs? In the LA Orange County area, the feedback was very different. We're so close together. Why don't we rove the students into the specialty programming instead and make sure that we have core curriculum that all align up? If you're going to go into health, everybody needs medical terminology related to health, safety related to health. But when we get into the specialized course, as a region, can we figure out our capacity a little bit better? Now, what is happening now? What is happening now is that colleges are making decisions as on their own, right? Without the full, and in some regions like San Diego, there's a lot of communications between the colleges. So there's a lot less swinging of capacity right now. So if you make the decision on your own, what tends to happen is you look at the labor market and say, great, it's happening, we all start programs. And then we realize we're all flooding the market, and then we all shut programs. So this swinging of capacity is not ideal. And to Member Avalo's point,
right.
how do we custom?
But you say here you're going to develop regional leadership. How are you going to do that? Who's going to do that?
We've already begun the process of bringing together the colleges by the way that we put out the monies to bring them together in conversation for joint planning.
So there are structures.
Yes,
there are structures in place at the college. Sorry, there's structures in place at the regional level that we have been implementing for the last 3 years.
And so, which region is excelling? Which is a model region?
So in Central Valley, the Central Valley Higher Education Consortia, CVHAC, has brought together all the two-year college CEOs as well as the 4 years, and they have very robust conversations with the K-12 partners. In San Diego, a lot of that has been happening in Orange County. Through the grants, the community colleges are all plugged together with their K-12 partners. So it's happening at different pace based on the leadership of the region and the maturity of the region. So we have the beginnings of this, and the task force recommendation is saying, let's push it a little further, make it, evolve what are best practices so that it's easier for colleges.
And so I'll just share with you, sometimes when I'm on the phone with my colleagues in other regions, so I lead the regional work as a CEO in my region in San Diego. When I'm on the phone with my colleagues, sometimes they'll say, there's 12 colleges in our region, 11 of the CEOs are in their first year, and 9 of them are in accreditation jeopardy. So CTE is not a priority for that region right that moment. Doesn't mean it won't be, but that's a whole different ballgame than when you're in San Diego and you've been meeting together since the 1960s. You've been coordinating like that. So all the regions are in a slightly different place based on what else is happening in their worlds, but there are good models that can be used. There's definitely some strengthening that can happen of communication and coordination and all of that. And so that development of regional leadership is really working with whatever you have, which is very different in regions, and trying to make that the best that it can be and sharing what's working in other regions as well.
So if you're in a region like, let's say Compton, where things are really, so how are you going to help those regions that are not as far ahead as Orange County or San Diego or whatever?
Do you want to address that? It's really regional leadership work that's done out of your area.
Well, let's take it to the very tactical. So, for example, in one area, there was advisory board work done by the employers that advised a certificate called the Business Information Worker. And it was just a repackaging of the community college courses, all the Microsoft courses, plus some customer relationship management, plus communication skills. That change in the certificate enabled, instead of 4 students at a career fair to get hired, it was over 100 students from the same program to get hired. And within the year's time frame, from word of mouth, between faculty to faculty, now 50 colleges are at the verge of replicating and ingesting that curriculum. So when you say, well, so could a single college do that alone in Compton? Well, they may be able to do it, but it would happen faster with this kind of support structure around them.
I think you flagged some issues that are going to happen with the implementation, but the commitment is to regional coordination. Member Sumner.
Wow. With listening to what Avalo said, you talked about, 5 to 10 year plan. I sort of look at it from a military standpoint. Did we meet, when you met with the communities and the town hall meetings, did you say, for example, let's just use my hospital. How many of your nurses are going to be retiring in, say, the next 5 to 10 years? You can sort of get an idea. So this is sort of the way I'm looking at it. I'm going to bring it down to the weeds. I've been in nursing 38 years, so I'm hoping to retire maybe in 5 to 7 years, believe it or not. But so the exit strategy, 5 to 7 years, train somebody to bring in. Now you go back to the community colleges that have nursing programs. They have to get their master's degrees to teach. So you have them teaching, but they don't have the clinical, they don't have the hands-on experience. So now you're looking at people that have their bachelor's, or they're having the hospitals do the training. So I am now a mentor. So I'm mentoring the students. We give them the hands-on, they get the experience. And this is what worries me about with this whole process sometimes, is I want to know that I am going to mentor the nurses properly. So it's like, I know I'm sort of going all over the place, but I sort of think of it this way. If we're not getting the nurses jobs, because a lot of nurses are trying to get jobs coming out of colleges. Our colleges offer so many wonderful things, especially for disaster preparedness right now, which is a new thing that now the colleges have to have disaster preparedness. Utilize them in non-credit classes, giving them ACLS, like I've said before, advanced cardiac life support, pediatric advanced life support. Have our nurses, have our students, with the paramedics that are coming out of our colleges that are ahead of the game of all the other people. Have them get psych start, have them get start triage, all for disaster preparedness. Could be non-credit classes, or you can offer credit for these classes. We're California. We're going to have earthquakes. We're going to have disasters. Have our community colleges step their game up and be known for that. Have them be that's why I love being on this board, because we can make a difference. But there's not jobs for some of those people. So I want to know when I retire in 5 years if somebody's going to save my life. So, and that's why you mentor it. But it's that whole degree different thing. I was looking at that going, wow, I can maybe do a CTE. Well, no, I don't have my master's, can't do it. But I mean, it's,
The place where we could use you.
I got enough volunteers. But I mean, it's just like if we can, really get the communities, the regions, Northern California, Southern California, working together with this whole disaster, this is huge. This is different. We can really give more to the students. And I always tell my students when they come in, when I'm mentoring them, okay, here's the FEMA courses, you can go online. Free FEMA courses, you get college credits for it, doesn't cost you a cent. If you want to get hired here, this is what you need to do. Go take Start. Come take my class on this disaster preparedness. Build your resume. That's what's going to get you in. So,
Okay.
that's all.
Member Hawkins and Member Epstein and Member Conway.
Thank you, President Baum. I just want to thank the task force for this work. This is very timely, and I think we're, again, maybe not as fast as some of our folks would like us to move, but I think this is a great foundation, and I'm looking forward to see how we, as a system, address implementation around the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Member Epstein.
I want to reiterate, I want to reiterate, I think having this work done this quickly and this comprehensively is really a great thing, and it's I think it's a quality product. The question I have, not being an expert on any of this stuff, is what would be the 2 or 3 big things that the state should do, or our board could do to move the ball forward in the most effective way? Are there things that leap out that kind of cut across a lot of these categories that are things that this board might, through its resources, be able to really help to accelerate that would affect everything?
I'd be remiss as a CEO if I didn't say we have to have some funding, not to do everything, but we have to have some funding to make sure, thank you, to make sure that we are able to keep up. What we have is good programs within our system, but that really have, through the recession, been beleaguered as far as facilities and equipment and those kinds of things. So I would say funding is a big part of this. I think what you've heard around the board, across the board, is really helping our regions to, and our faculty, our staff, our administrators, to really share what's working in an effective way so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel in every place, but that we're sharing that. So the platform for sharing those best practices effectively, specifically around CTE, and allowing us, and this goes back to funding, allowing us to give the faculty the time that they need to develop the innovative curriculum, keep up with the industry changes and the professional development that they need and that kind of thing for counselors as well as for our faculty.
My vote would be the curriculum. If we can move the curriculum the way that, closer towards the speed that industry needs, more of industry will come to the table to help our students. That's the first one. And I would echo on the funding. Now, funding is this is not a small endeavor, because for 12 years now, whether it's a good year or a bad year, CTE has declined as a proportion of the FTS portfolio. So as we think about how to move forward and make it sustain and make it predictable, we're going to have to work with the Department of Finance and the Governor's Office and the legislature to make sure that the behavior that we want in terms of the outcomes are what was intended.
I want to add one more, Tom. I think one of the greatest challenges we have in California is that we have devalued over the last 4 decades these careers in parents and students' minds.
Yep.
So one of the things that we have to do, and it's one of the recommendations in the report, is we have to change the mindset of Californians about encouraging their family members into these careers. And that's going to require a statewide campaign of some sort. We did that with the I Can Afford College campaign, and we had an 83% increase in the number of students that were aware of financial aid. We need to have a similar kind of campaign in California to help parents and students understand that they can make $110,000 a year or $90,000 a year in a great career rather than everybody aspiring to be a Supreme Court justice or a brain surgeon. It just, we have to change the conversation. If we're going to save California in terms of those 100 million jobs, not only do we have to do a good job, but we have to change the dialogue in the state.
That is so important.
And I was going to say the same thing with a little different slant. The CTE faculty are key to making all of this happen, and it's so important that we're shining a light on these awesome programs out there that have been hidden, I think, for so long, and maybe neglected or misinformation about, or thinking it old school 1950s vocational education. That's not what it is anymore. Like I said at the beginning, CTE is academic.
But I also think, not to interrupt other board members, but in that same vein, the people that are looking at these classes to go into, if we're putting together a communication strategy to make this important to them, I think right now so many people fear that it's classes that don't end in a job. How can we guarantee if you finish this program, a job will be waiting, and it will be our job to make sure you are in that job in the next 60 to 90 days?
So, Member Conway?
Wow. Because I could respond to something. That brings more questions. And I'm probably way, way behind, so I want all of you to help me understand. This has to be maybe 10 years ago. I was serving on a board of supervisors, and I got many letters and concerns from students who wanted to go in the nursing program. It was a big push at that point. And I think, Gary, every community college where we live had a nursing program. But it seems to me Porterville was in particular need for something. Anyway, as I did a little investigation into this, which was totally out of my field, but I used to tell people, you only elected me supervisor, you did not elect me queen. If you elect me queen of California, then I can solve all your problems. It'd be really simple. But one of the issues that came up was a ratio of part-time and full-time faculty. Has that already been solved? At that time, it was. No.
I think you were dreaming. I think you were dreaming.
We need another
If you were queen.
Okay, so I'm here to announce my candidacy for queen. Yeah, I mean, it was a real dilemma because for career tech, especially it seemed like in the nursing, there were people that wanted to teach, but the school already had, they wanted to still do their nursing, but also maybe do night share and be able to teach. But they couldn't because there was this part-time, full-time. Is that something that can at least be looked at or somehow developed? Because I think you're going to, for career tech, especially the way technology changes like that, you really are going to have part-time folks, maybe at first. I don't know. I mean, I don't have an answer to the question I'm asking. I was really just curious if that dilemma had been solved or if there is someone even working on that, or if that can be solved? I don't know those questions.
I think you bring up a point. Part-time faculty play an important role all over our college, but particularly in CTE. They're in both worlds at the same time, and they have relationships that they bring, they have current information that they bring. So I think as much as possible, we do try to incorporate people that are working into our CTE fields and try to maintain that balance of full-time, part-time ratio as much as we can. But this is a place where we really want to embrace and welcome people that are working in the field by day or by night and teaching for us on the opposite side of that schedule. So it's something that I think is well suited in CTE in particular.
Okay, well, I hope I didn't I'm not trying to open a can of worms. It just, as
that's
I was
okay.
listening to this, I hearkened back to that conversation.
Sure, sure.
Well, we're going to take some public comment, and then we'll see what other final comments other board members have.
Okay, we have 3 comments. In order, Andrea Bell, David Morse, and Sharon Vogel.
Good afternoon. Is this?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, thank you. I'm Andrea Ball. Thank you, President Baum and board members and Chancellor Harris. I'm Andrea Ball, Senior Policy Advisor with Early Edge California. We're a statewide nonprofit that has been working for more than 10 years to advance policies to ensure young children get the early experiences they need to be successful in school and set on paths for success in career and college. We commend the task force for its thorough approach and the comprehensive recommendations and the commitment of the task force members and all the staff and individuals involved. One of the priority areas for Early Edge California is the quality of the preparation, training, and professional development for the early childhood workforce. For teachers, caregivers, staff, and directors working in programs that serve infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. The community colleges are key institutions providing the coursework, training, field experiences, and ongoing professional development to this workforce. And the community colleges are also providers, providing childcare to children of community college students. And we know that for many students, childcare is an important factor in their ability to complete courses of study. We ask that as you continue considering the recommendations of the task force, you consider the implications and ways to include early childhood and child development programs. This is a recognized CTE sector, and it faces the same challenges that the other CTE fields do and have been outlined in the report. This includes the issues portability, how to incorporate recent advances in the fields, connect with other sector initiatives, provide clearer pathways, consistency and quality to the programs, and the greater expense of providing the field experiences, which for this sector are generally provided through the lab schools. The economic stakes are significant. The Conference Board's Committee for Economic Development released a report on childcare and state economies, and two important points for California. Throughout California, there are over 111,000 childcare programs with revenue of $5.3 billion. The childcare industry employs more than 170,000 individuals and supports an additional 84,000 jobs in related industry sectors across California. For community colleges, the investment in early learning and care workforce programs has a number of positive implications. In addition to directly meeting employer and parent needs, a better trained and prepared workforce will result in higher quality early learning experience for children in California and throughout their K-12 experience, and also result in community college students entering your programs and colleges ready to do college-level work from the outset, and I know that's probably relevant to your second agenda item this morning. The timing of your deliberations is opportune. National and state policymakers are looking at existing preparation and training requirements. Earlier this year, the National Academy's Institute of Medicine issued a comprehensive report, Transforming the Workforce for Children birth through age 8, and it contains a set of ambitious recommendations. And we expect later this year those recommendations to be reviewed and a plan for implementation and advancing them in California to begin to be developed. In addition, the Commission on Teacher Credentialing has initiated a panel review of the existing state requirements for permits for people working in state child care programs, and that panel will complete its work by July 1st. I thank you on behalf of Early Edge California, and we will provide written comments to you before your next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is David Morse.
Okay, President Baum, Chancellor Harris, and board members, I'm back. First off, the Economic Senate's been involved with the work of the task force, both in the task force and behind the scenes from the beginning, and I want to thank Vice Chancellor Ton Quinlivan and Sonny Cook as chair, and all of the task force members for working with us and including us in that work. We will be discussing these recommendations at our plenary session in November, and I'm certain that I will be coming back at your next meeting with clear positions and probably with suggestions for implementation at that time. Two quick comments I want to make on the recommendations themselves. One is just the consideration that a number of these recommendations, if implemented wisely and implemented properly, really are not just about career technical education. Career technical education obviously was the focus of the task force and job creation, but a number of these recommendations have the potential to impact all of our programs, obviously the ones involving curriculum, professional development, but also things like the one that talks about changing the education code language on auditing, which, yes, would be a great benefit for our CTE students, but would also help us a great deal. Some of you remember our discussions on course repetition a couple of years ago, and it would help to deal with a lot of those issues. The other point that I would like to make is that if you read the background papers, and in this presentation, several times the importance of creating pathways has been mentioned, the connections with high schools. and want to point out that the Academic Senate, starting in 2006, was working with the statewide Career Pathways Project and running the Career Pathways Project created through SB 70 and SB 1070, and for 8 years was working to create those pathways with high schools, also to reflect off of Chancellor Harris's comment about emphasizing the possibilities and the availability and the importance of those other positions, created a toolkit to be used by counselors in high schools to help direct students and help clarify those things for them. Our funding for that program went away, and we are no longer able to do that work for you. We want to. We also lost the technical assistance provider grant for being able to do that work. The faculty would like to be able to continue that work, would like to be able to continue to lead that work and to help create those pathways and create those opportunities for students. We need to have both the resources and the responsibility for that program returned to the Academic Senate so that we can do so. Thank you.
Lastly, Sharon Vogel from Butte College.
Pardon my lack of shoes. My shoe just broke. So much for professionalism. I'm Sharon Vogel. I'm the president of FAC, the Faculty Association for California Community Colleges, but I'm also CTE faculty. I'm a nursing faculty at Butte College. I teach at the very beginning level of nursing all the way up to the bachelor's, certified nurse's aide, home health aide, acute care aide, which start off anywhere from $12 to $17 an hour, but do not qualify for financial aid. So the cost of those programs to the students is fairly extreme. I want to praise this task force for being very inclusive. There were many, many opportunities for faculty to be engaged and have their voices heard. And many of the problems that were brought up are conversations that CTE faculty have had for a number of years at the leadership level in the Academic Senate. So it was nice to have that chance to, yes, whine a little bit about our conditions, but also to see that creative process of coming up with some solutions. FAC was also one of those people who provided, we were one of the 10 letters that were received, and we're pleased to hear the response and that our feedback was listened to. We still are concerned because the 10+1 does say that faculty have primacy over curriculum and minimum quals, so those would still be very important for us to ensure that, although the vast majority of recommendations were well thought out, and we really appreciate the detail that the sub-objectives have provided. That's really helped clear up a lot of things. It'll be interesting to see how it's implemented, because that's how things happen. And as we learned from the Student Success Task Force, there were some things that concerned us as it was implemented. So we look forward to be engaged in the conversations that happen as implementation happens and how important that industry role is. We are cautionary, especially I in nursing am cautionary about industry's role. Our 3 local, actually multiple local facilities are very stressed. We live in a rural area. There's not much income. Many of them are, as facilities, are living on the edge of success, and they don't have monies to give us. Do they lend us support in letting our students into their facility? Absolutely. But should they dictate our curriculum? No, because it's not always necessarily realistic of what they expect our new grad exit level should be. I also want to stress that we cannot forget our GE side of the house. On my campus, which is very heavily CTE, well over half of our FTES happens because of CTEs and the combined GE that our students need to be able to come into our programs. So we cannot divide the house, whether it be with money or professional development or salary differences. We need to make sure we're united. I need my students to come well prepared with contextualized learning and basic skills, math, English, at my CNA level all the way up to my ADN level where I teach too. So it's important that we do not divide the house with where it goes forward. Regional advisory boards, I think they pointed out very well that it depends on your region. We can't have our students traveling to Susanville, so having the facility at Susanville be engaged in our regional advisory board may not be logical. But I think that to not overstress our regional business partners is critical, but it will depend on our region. So we look forward, in fact, to how this conversation evolves, how the implementation happens, and hope that we can be involved in that conversation. And to answer your question on that ratio of full-time to part-time, we would love more full-time faculty in CTE because they're the ones that maintain that curriculum, go to those regional meetings, reach out to the K through 12 schools. A part-timer cannot do all the requirements that are now required in that faculty load, especially with student learning outcomes and accreditation demands. Our part-timers love to participate, but they also have to have a full-time job for wages and benefits in particular. And so it's very hard for them to give that full-time job to come work for us at a part-time wage with no benefits. So it still is a concern. It still is an ongoing battle. And we're very blessed that our local industry works with us. So thank you very much for the efforts, and thank you very much for listening to my comments today.
Okay, board member comments. Member Budman, did you have? Okay. Member Kaur?
Yeah, I saved my comments for discussion. Something that was brought up during questions was the getting students to believe in the program also, and that would lead to credibility. So I really, really wanted to stress how important I think like a website like Assist would be, but for a CTE. If that was created, I think the companies that you're going after will be able to see that, and maybe they'll be able to add to it. There can be a component where they look up job settings, or if other companies want to engage in CTE programs, they'll see how it's been laid out before, and they'll be more inclined. I feel like if that data is posted in there, it brings a lot more credibility to the program, which I think a lot of people want to see. And I was wondering why Cal Grant C was focused on in increasing that. Instead, couldn't we like increase grants or scholarships specifically to CTE bound students? Because Cal Grant C won't ensure that it does. I mean, I don't think it's required that you have to be a CTE student to get that. So just increasing those Cal Grants can go to other students that maybe aren't in the program. So I don't know if that would be as beneficial as looking at grants specifically for CTE students.
And well, this is more for board conversation too, so I'm sure you'll be taking that down. Member Budnick?
Just looking for some data first. Do we know, or is this printed, what percentage of students who begin a CTE degree finish that degree? Do we have that piece of information?
Go ahead.
Yes, it's in the statewide scorecard. It's about 50%. Is that right? 47. That's a statewide, and then you can look it up by each college as well.
Right. And then this might be a little more complicated. Do we know what percentage of those 47% that finish that course, what percentage get a job in that related field within a certain period of time, let's say a year, or is that data out there?
We can tell you what they earn 2 years and 5 years after. We can't tell you exactly. We don't have the ability yet to connect Social Security number or employment. We can use UI wage data to tell you what they're making. We can't connect the employment data.
Is that
yet.
what the workforce data and outcomes is about?
Yes,
So will that
that's
generate
what the section in the.
So I think two pieces of information that to me like are really important to have before I can even really engage in this in a real way is number one, those unmet workforce sectors. And if you could just get that to me in a very simple one-page, forget the locations, just what are the main areas that are going to have those million jobs? And then we can break it out beyond that into the different areas of California. Then that second piece of information, how many folks or what people are earning after getting those CT degrees would be another piece of information I think would be really helpful. I am so excited about this. I'm all over it. I love it. But it does, 47% is good, and I'm sure it's going up, but it could be much better. And I don't know what our role on the board is in this. I really want to have a real robust discussion here, and I really think if half the people are failing either because of our doing or their doing, we need to figure out why. I think what Arnoldo said, about having a career center on each campus that actually must deliver on jobs, that might even be graded on how they deliver on jobs, placement, wages, etc. I think that's crucial. I think, as discussed, the additional financial support for students who choose to go into these unmet workforce sectors via the Cal Grant C or other funding is huge, and as well as the schools that will develop these programs getting additional funding. I'd love to fight for that vigorously. I said this on my first meeting ever when I was reading the Student Success Task Force and really worried that a lot of the financial aid or the support on campus doesn't go to support issues about life, housing, transportation, childcare, etc. And I really, to be honest with you, have not gotten any answers or seen any progress since my first meeting on those issues. So I'm really wondering what additional support can we provide CTE students. I mean, I know a lot of young people who take CTE courses because there is an urgency for them to provide. There's an urgency for them to get work. They don't want to sit through 4 years of school. There is an urgency. And if there is that urgency, they might have kids themselves. They might be very low income. And then those issues of housing and transportation and childcare and trauma and everything else are exacerbated. So I'd love to at some point start getting some issues of what types of financial support, funding, scholarships, et cetera, we can provide to people who have to take 4 buses to get to campus and then take 4 buses home to find their dad drunk, beating up their mom, and not being able to study because home is so dysfunctional, yet we don't have dorms on community college campuses except for 4 or 5 throughout the state. I just feel like the support of people's struggles is not currently there, and if we could help people through their lives with more counselors and that type of support, we'll see far better outcomes. And then, lastly, what colleges are still offering CTE courses from like the dinosaur ages where there's no jobs available and they're just wasting time and money and wasting the hopes and dreams of students? And if we're going to give financial support to students and colleges that offer training in coding and other kind of emerging fields, if there are many colleges offering courses where no job is available, are we going to remove funding for those that are offering those classes and wasting funds? So those are my comments for now.
Well, no, I'm really glad you raised those issues. I'm just going to tackle the first one. You said, what is the role of the Board of Governors? This is our task force. We appointed them. We charge them. They're working at our direction. And those recommendations are going to then, if we adopt them, we're going to turn it over to the chancellor to address those kind of issues that are going to impact students' ability to complete their programs, to make sure the curriculum is updated across the state. And so our job is going to be now, if we adopt them, to empower the chancellor and hold the system accountable for fulfilling those. But these guys are our designated team to have actually brought the whole state together to agree and align on an agenda going forward.
Then I think we need to really challenge, and once again, this is no comment on the incredible leadership. I tell everybody, I've never seen any type of leadership like the folks, the vice chancellors, the folks that run this department. But even with an incredibly well-run department, if 53% of the students are failing, or at least a percentage of those 53% are not completing this and not going into a job with living wages, then I think we really need to take this seriously and really look at the macro questions that this raises rather than drilling down into all the tiny specifics. Do we have a huge problem here? I mean, I saw the statistics about who that starts regular college, finish, transfer math, and transfer English. The statistics are insanely troubling, but I know on the rise. So it's like, I feel like we have such a substantial role here in saying there needs to be huge fixes here. There's huge funding gaps, and there's many other issues that we really need to dive into.
Chancellor had his hand.
Yeah, we couldn't agree more. We couldn't agree more with your comment. One of the recommendations in here is that data, because what we believe to be the case with the 47% is that we know there are an awful lot of students that are hired out of these programs before they complete the programs, and so they are currently considered failures. So when you look in here about the data, when you look at our scorecard, it measures 70% of our students. The other 30% fall into that category, and we've got to figure out a way to measure the success of a student that comes to us, takes 2 welding courses, doesn't finish the program, and ends up working in a shipyard, welding in the San Diego area. So that's not going to make it go from 47 to 98, but we need to know how much of that is going on, and that's why you see those recommendations in here. And then when you get to the next session in your agenda today, and you talk about the basic skills, you're going to get at the other part of what we believe is at the core of those halves. So these recommendations are designed to get at exactly what you're talking about.
And I want to beat the drum a little bit, only in that 5 years ago, if it weren't for the Board of Governors, we wouldn't even have that data where we know 47%.
Right.
Now, the Board of Governors, through the Student Success Task Force, said we got to start getting the data so we actually know. And now we have the data to hold ourselves accountable. And if 5 years from now we're at 48%, then we all failed at our mission here.
Can I ask one last question? If there is a Chancellor, I think you said $210 million that's either has been in the budget or that we're going to ask for.
200 million, yes.
Right. So that 200 million, how does that get distributed to the various community college districts?
Well, when you look at the history of the 450 million that the state's invested in student success and equity, it goes out in a myriad of ways. Some of it goes directly out based on a per FTE basis. Some of it goes out in grants at targeted programs that we know, for example, some of these basic skills activities we're going to talk about in a moment. Some of it goes into equipment and facilities that support the area. So it's across the board. And again, if we're successful in doing some of this work regionally, some of it will go out that way as well.
I sit on the Board of Corrections, which is basically a pass-through of billions of dollars to the counties. And we do some very highly competitive RFP situations where if they give us $900 million for local jail construction, counties throughout the state really compete, and only the best proposals win. And I'm wondering if this is a emergency, if there's a state of emergency that there's going to be 1 million jobs that we're not currently filling, and we can get 200 million or 400 million or 600, whatever it may be, to fill this, is it allowed? Has it been done? Is there precedent to create a system-wide RFP process that looks at the sectors, it looks where the jobs are, and where a college can not only say, like, we're going to provide this, but the college can then talk to their local Federation of Labor, and the labor can write a letter in saying we're committing to hiring every person that completes this program the day they complete the program. Then that's part of their RFP, and then that gets graded above the community college district that just has the class and doesn't have the jobs. It's like, can we make it competitive to make sure that all of those positions get filled and all those people get trained?
Yes. There's a structure that exists for that now. What we need is the money to go in the front end and the accountability system on the back end.
Got it.
I'm going to go to Joseph, but I want to add one thing because you mentioned it, and Member Avalos mentioned it too, but I just want to share an anecdote about the local career services departments. And I'm a senior executive with an organization that hires more than 100 people in the Coachella Valley. We had a number of openings, contacted a local district saying, and at my direction, and they said, candidly, our office here doesn't work that way. We can't match. And I had live openings that people that we were looking to hire community college students and graduates, and we need much better systems up and down the state. Member Belinsky.
I want to just start off by thanking the task force for all of their work in less than a year. Yeah. Incredible. And I would hope that the task force would remain as a resource to the Chancellor and the Board of Governors as we move forward implementing this. I'll just make a comment on data. Once again, as the Chancellor pointed out, we need to come up with, as they say in here, different ways of acknowledging a student completing. We also need the student identifier to even be able to be assured about placement, because I don't know that we're collecting all the placement data because of some of the issues that are around that. And the other thing I would bring into the mix is I do think that all local colleges should be asked to re-review the coding of all their programs, because I'm convinced there's also CTE programs at local colleges that were never coded that. And because of just the different coding operations, and I think that would be helpful as we go through this process to do it really as dynamically as possible. Thank you.
Okay, to just close, Member Burdick, please.
I want to go back to the idea of the CTE is academic. One of the things that we want to watch out for with contextualized education for the basic skills, which I'm in favor of, is that we don't create dead ends. We want to make sure that these CTE students can re-enter later after they have their certificate and come back and get an AA or go into a transfer program or something like that. And so often with a contextualized basic skills class, it is so keyed into the program that they forget the basic structure of the course. So thinking about that. The other thing I noticed when I was reading this report, and it's an excellent report, and I particularly appreciate the perspectives that gave us all sorts of information, because CTE is not my field. I feel like I understand it fully now, or almost fully. But there's a tension all the way. There's a tension all the way through this report between the state level, the regional level, and the local college level. That I think is not on purpose, but it is something to watch for when we are looking at the implementation. We have to remember that the equivalency and pathways and programs and curriculum are all local college based, so that when they come together, we want to retain the locus of power there at the community college rather than moving it up. Certainly won't want them to work together, but we don't want to lose that. And with that, I'm done.
It was dark.
That was good.
I guess that's the hook pulling me off stage.
Member Estelano.
Okay, briefly, I want to just, again, thank the task force, and I guess I want to address also Board Member Budnick's point about the team, our team, this team. So we're really lucky because we, in a sense, had a first reading, this presentation, in a pretty informal setting where we could go back and forth. The really important meeting is in November, where we're going to be asked to vote on the recommendations. And I guess what I'd ask all of my colleagues to do is to dig deeper, is to not just read the 25-page report, but read the white papers. If there's a part about it that really struck your fancy, dig into those white papers. Maybe you're not going to read all 5 of them or 4 of them or whatever number it was, but get into one of them pretty deeply. And then if you still want to go farther, that is our job. Our task force made recommendations. It was incredibly collaborative. You saw all the outreach they did, all the meetings they did, plus consultation council is a whole nother rigmarole that everybody has to do before they even get to our level, right? But it's our job ultimately to set policy and direction. And if any of us feels like we need to go a little bit harder or faster or clearer or tougher or whatever in a particular area, that's our responsibility to do that, to sharpen and tighten. Or if we don't like some of the recommendations, eliminate them. Or if we think they overlap too much. But that's the real work of this board. And I think we sometimes just sort of passively accept the recommendation of our staff. And they're always very excellent recommendations. But they come through many, many levels of filter. And so this is the chance for this pretty exceptionally well-qualified board from many, many different walks of life to put an imprint on CTE. And I think the point that David Morris made about some of these recommendations, like just take curriculum. If we tackled that, and CTE becomes sort of the foot in the door, it would have a really major impact on the way things were viewed. And there's probably 6 significant recommendations that are kind of easy recommendations, but if you really sharpened them and thought about them, they could have major ripple effects for our whole system. And then I think maybe the last point I want to make, there's just 2 other points actually. One, the 47% non-completion, just as a technical point, super important because one of the most important recommendations of this task force is to change the way that we define completion. super important. I think it's been said a few times, but I just want to underscore that because what is it? I'm not going to get the names right. There's the completers and then there's the skill builders. I think most of the CTE folks are skill builders. Just the experience I know from the LA Trade Tech folks. They're in, they're out. So they're never going to get counted as a completer. And a place like LA Trade Tech, which is an exceptional, outstanding CTE college, is never going to get the credit for the incredible work they're doing and really groundbreaking work they're doing. So we need to change the way we define success, and then I think we'll be able to better measure how we're doing. And then the last piece is your question about competitive process was a really good one. Like, we kind of know what we want to solve, so can't we just, put out a lot of money in competitive grants? And I'm usually the person who's always arguing for that, but I actually read what you all said about that, the issue of funding around sustainability and predictability. So we got to figure out a way to make sure that these CTE courses and CTE faculty and CTE programs that are sort of stepchildren don't only have to rely on one-time or two-time plugs of funding. There has to be a way to fund the kinds of programs we support that we all want to get behind in places that may not have the resources. Valerie, thank you for bringing up one of the schools we visited recently. But we have to find a way to provide that type of consistent funding, or at least recommend to the legislature a way to do that, so that we make CTE like the thing, like it's a viable option. People can count on it. So that's a challenge, and I haven't quite figured out what you guys really want us to do there, so I think I need to read more. But that's my point, and I really look forward to this discussion in 2 months. But we all of us need to dig deeper and decide one or two things that we really care about we think we might want to tweak, because this is our report, these are our recommendations. So let's own them. Thank you.
I want to briefly, Member Bundy.
I'd like to talk about outcomes, but I'd love to go in the opposite direction, meaning is a skill builder, is that success? Is a completer success, or is someone that's in a job with a living wage success?
That's what she was just talking about.
Yeah, I understand, but to me, the outcome goes down in terms of, sure, 47% completed the course, but of those 40%, how many went into a living wage? Does that now go down to 20%? Does that now go down to 19? I mean, where is that? And I think that's going to be important to know, because to me, that is the final outcome. It's like a teacher can do an incredible job teaching a class, imparting incredible skills. The person can graduate with a certificate. But if there isn't somebody at that college that is going to plug them in with the local Chamber of Commerce, with the local Federation of Labor, with local somebody that can plug them into a job or guarantee a job, or they can really compete for a job, then
I think we're in agreement. That's what I mean as changing the definition. It's your placement and what wages. Did they get a good living wage, and is it sustainable? That's success.
I want to thank the task force, because this has been a remarkable process, and we've asked you to do a job that was very challenging, to unite the employer community, the labor community, the academic community, the policymaker community over the course of 9 months, and find alignment. And what you're reporting to me is that there is a strong alignment around these recommendations. When we did the Student Success Task Force a few years ago, there were some areas where there wasn't alignment, and we had to navigate through that in order to do this. But what the message I'm getting is that there's alignment across all these sectors that they want going forward, and that is very helpful as we then engage in November on these recommendations. And also, this is something I know the state capitol, it came up during my confirmation process, and our new Senate Republican Majority Leader, Gene Fuller, raised the issue about looking forward to hearing what came out of this task force and how the state was going to align the system to better serve the needs of employers. So thank you for that. Thank you, Chancellor. And now my one request is that we redouble our efforts to publicize this, only in that I know there are a lot of independent initiatives across the state focused on workforce. I've come across other organizations that are all doing, we're going to solve the workforce issue, whether it's the Southern California Leadership Council or a group that I know called LA in Sync, or other folks that are doing this. And I say, oh, by the way, did you know that we're embarking on a statewide effort with the largest workforce training provider in the state to actually do that. They said, I had no idea that you're already taking this on. And I really think it's imperative for us to let the state know that, that there is a centrally coordinated statewide effort at the policy level to do this, because there are so many other, I don't want to say copycat, but duplicative initiatives that feel they're solving the same issue that we're trying to tackle here. And that's very important. Are there any final questions? Chancellor, do you have any final words on that? So with that, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I want to thank that, and we will return to discuss basic